Jack Marlowe sat on the edge of his worn-out sofa, staring at the faded wall across from him. The small apartment smelled faintly of stale coffee and old takeout containers. The sunlight of early morning tried to pierce through the thin curtains, but it did little to lift the heaviness that weighed on him. After returning from a war that had taken more from him than it ever gave, Jack had hoped that civilian life would be simple. But it wasn't. Bills piled up, his body ached from old injuries, and sleep was something he did in fits and starts. Haunted by memories he could neither forget nor fully understand, he reached for his mug, only to find it empty. With a sigh, he leaned back and glanced at the small stack of unopened mail on the coffee table. Most of it was bills or junk, but one envelope stood out. It was thick, heavy, and unlike any paper he had seen before. It had no return address, only a strange symbol embossed in silver, a dragon coiled around a crescent moon. Jack frowned. He turned it over in his hands, feeling the weight of it. Probably some kind of scam, he muttered to himself. Still, something about it drew him in. With a small knife, he cut the envelope open and pulled out a single sheet of shimmering paper. The text on it seemed to glow faintly, and the letters rearranged themselves as he blinked. To Jack Marlowe, Humyn of Earth, you have been named heir to Xerix, the last Dravosian dragon, by Her Majesty, Queen Thalira of Dravos. Refusal is not recommended. Compliance will ensure your safety and prosperity. Jack blinked. He laughed nervously, thinking he must be losing his mind. Dravosian, Dragon Queen. What? He muttered, his voice trembling slightly. He flipped the paper over, hoping for some sort of explanation, but there was none. Instead, a small device slid out from a hidden pocket in the envelope. It was sleek, metallic, and almost alive, humming with a quiet energy. Curiosity won over caution. Jack pressed the small button on the device. A holographic image burst to life in the air before him, sharp and colorful. A tall, elegant figure appeared, wearing robes of deep purple and silver. With eyes that seemed to see right through him, "Greetings, Jack Marlowe," the figure said in perfect, clear English. Her voice was commanding yet not unkind. "I am Queen Thalira of Dravos. You do not know me, but we have watched your kind for some time. It is not often that we select a human as an heir, but circumstances require it. You are to inherit Xerix." Jack rubbed his eyes, unsure if he was dreaming. What? Look, I think someone's pulling a prank on me." "Xerix is no prank," the hologram said calmly. "He is the last of his kind, a dragon of immense power, and yet despised by my people. He awaits you on Dravos Prime. Failure to appear is unwise." Jack's heart pounded. A dragon on another planet, and he, a struggling veteran barely making ends meet, was supposed to inherit it? He laughed again, but this time it sounded hollow. He spent the next hour pacing, arguing with himself. Could this be some elaborate scam? Or had someone finally snapped him out of reality by throwing him into an interstellar joke? He wasn't sure which was worse. Still, a part of him, a small, reckless, stubborn part, was intrigued. A dragon. How could he resist the chance to see something impossible? The next morning, the sky above his apartment rippled strangely, like water in a pond disturbed by a stone. Jack rubbed his eyes, but the effect persisted. Then, without warning, a portal shimmered into existence in the middle of his tiny living room. Smoke curled from its edges, and a low growl echoed from inside. Jack froze. The growl became a voice, deep and smooth, with an almost human cadence. "Well, this is cozy, small, smelly, and kind of depressing." Jack stumbled backward. "Who? What? I am Xerix," the voice said, now tinged with amusement. "I take it you are my new owner. You are surprisingly human-looking. Fragile, I'd say. Probably snackable." Jack's mouth went dry. The voice came from nowhere and everywhere at once. Then, slowly, a massive, sinuous shape emerged from the portal. Scales shimmered in colors he could barely describe: emerald, sapphire, and molten gold all at once. Its eyes were bright, intelligent, and human-like. The dragon was enormous, easily filling the tiny room. Its wings were tucked against its back, but even folded, They seem capable of blocking out the sun. Jack stumbled over a chair, nearly tripping. This isn't real. It can't be real. Xerxes lowered his head, bringing his eyes level with Jack's. Oh, it is real. Very real. And you are stuck with me. Congratulations, Humyn. Your life is about to get very interesting. For a long moment, neither spoke. Jack's mind raced. He thought about his small, lonely apartment, the bills he couldn't pay, the nights spent staring at the ceiling. And now, a talking alien dragon stood in his living room, waiting for him to act by. I don't know anything about dragons, Jack admitted finally. I know, Xerxes said, a smirk audible in his tone, which is exactly why they sent you. All the intelligent aliens failed. Too predictable. Too cautious. Too boring. You humans, for all your flaws, have one thing, unpredictability. And chaos, which is perfect for me. Jack sat down heavily on the couch, running a hand over his face. So, what now? Now, Xerxes' voice rumbled like distant thunder. Now, you learn to feed me. Keep me out of trouble. Survive alien assassination attempts. And eventually, maybe even bond with me enough to avoid dying horribly. It's a lot, I know. Jack exhaled, staring at the dragon. And if I refuse? Xerxes' eyes narrowed. Refusal is not recommended. I am loyal, yes, but I am also very effective at self-preservation. And I have long memories. You do the math. For the first time in months, Jack laughed. It was shaky, half in disbelief, half in nervousness. I can't believe this. I'm inheriting a dragon. A real dragon. And it talks. And it's sarcastic, indeed, Xerxes said. And apparently, you humans are surprisingly resilient, so perhaps this will be entertaining. The next few days were a blur. Jack tried, and failed, to explain the situation to anyone he knew. His sister didn't believe him. His neighbor thought he was hallucinating. Even the police were skeptical when he called for help, claiming he had a giant alien dragon in his apartment. Meanwhile, Xerxes explored the tiny space with remarkable agility, knocking over furniture, leaving scorch marks on the floor, and occasionally hissing in mild irritation at the smell of Earth's atmosphere. You really should clean more, Xerxes commented one morning, eyes half-lidded. Or at least bathe. This planet reeks, Jack groaned. I think I have bigger problems than cleaning. Yes, Xerxes said, curling his tail around a chair leg, nearly tipping it over. Like surviving, or figuring out why the queen chose a human. That is curious. Aliens usually choose their own kind for inheritances. You, of all things, are a variable, interesting, and dangerous, despite the chaos. Jack felt a spark he hadn't felt in a long time. A sense of purpose, wild and terrifying, was creeping back into his life. He wasn't sure if it would save him or destroy him, but he knew one thing. He couldn't turn back. Not now. A week later, a new hologram appeared, this time from Xerxes himself. You are to travel to Dravos Prime, the message said. There, your abilities will be tested, your courage measured, and your bond with me evaluated. Consider this a polite suggestion, arrive alive. Or don't, either way, you are unforgettable. Jack stared at the message, then at the dragon. Xerxes flicked his tail lazily, scales catching the light in a dazzling display. Looks like our vacation on Earth is over, Xerxes said. Jack took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the unknown settle on his shoulders. Yeah, I guess it is. And with that, Jack Marlowe, a poor, weary veteran, stepped into a universe that had never expected a human to survive, let alone inherit a dragon that could talk and possibly judge him. The portal in Jack Marlowe's apartment shimmered and hummed, still open from the previous night. Xerxes, the massive dragon with iridescent scales, lounged lazily on the cracked carpet, one claw hooked over the arm of the sofa. Jack stared at him, rubbing his temples. This is ridiculous, he muttered. I'm supposed to. What? Fly a dragon to another planet? I can barely manage the subway. Xerxes let out a low rumble that sounded suspiciously like a laugh. You humans have such fragile minds. Yet here you are, chosen, curious, entertaining, likely to annoy me greatly. I like it. Jack flopped back on the couch. I'm not even sure I want this, though. You don't have a choice, Xerix said, flicking his tail, which knocked over a stack of empty pizza boxes. Choices are for those who can survive without consequences. You will follow. You will obey. You will survive, hopefully. Jack groaned, but deep down, he felt a strange thrill. The war had left him numb, restless, and searching for something to pull him out of the fog. This absurd, terrifying, dangerous was exactly the kind of adventure he had been missing. Over the next few hours, Jack tried to understand Xerix. The dragon spoke constantly, in perfect English, though with a strange cadence that made every word feel calculated. Xerix was opinionated, sarcastic, and occasionally downright cruel in his jokes. But there was intelligence behind every comment. You humans are strange, Xerix said as he paced the apartment, each step leaving faint scorch marks on the floor. You fight for each other, yet kill for nothing. You are weak, yet persistent, curious, chaotic, and somehow capable. Jack scratched the back of his neck. I don't even know how to take care of a dragon. I can barely feed myself. That is why we will learn together, Xerix replied, tilting his head. I do not expect perfection. I expect survival. Jack spent the next day gathering supplies, consulting every survival guide he could find online, and trying to find somewhere big enough to house a creature of Xerix's size. His neighbor, Mrs. Larkins, stopped by, holding a tray of cookies. Her eyes widened when she saw Xerix's massive head peeking around the corner of the apartment. Jack, is that? She began. Xerix let out a small cough that sounded like laughter. Human female, friendly, smells of sugar. Harmless, for now. Jack waved awkwardly. Yes, this is a Xerix. He's visiting. Mrs. Larkin shook her head. I don't even want to know. Xerix's eyes narrowed, and he spoke in a mock whisper. I do not think she will survive long if I speak my mind fully. Jack groaned and dragged Xerix into the hallway. The dragon's massive wings scraped against the ceiling, leaving faint cracks. It became obvious that his apartment could not contain Xerix for long. Jack made the decision to move to the abandoned warehouse near the outskirts of the city. It was large, dusty, and forgotten, a perfect temporary lair. When they arrived, Xerix surveyed the space like a king inspecting a new castle. I've room for leisure, destruction, and chaos. I approve. Jack wiped sweat from his brow. We need to figure out feeding you. Do you eat cows and sheep? Something else? Xerix lifted a claw and swatted at a pile of rubble. Food is flexible. I prefer freshness. And variety, also. Occasionally, I enjoy something unexpected. Humans are surprisingly tasty, if you prepare them correctly. Not that I am hungry right now. Jack swallowed hard, trying not to imagine being eaten. Right, fresh. Vegetables, meat. Not me. Correct, Xerix said, flicking his tail with a sharp crack. You may live another day. Congratulations. Small victories as days passed. Jack and Xerix slowly began to understand each other. Jack discovered that Xerix had a sense of humor almost human in nature. Though his teasing could be cutting, Xerix learned that Jack was resourceful, stubborn, and willing to improvise when conventional methods failed. They trained together in the warehouse, testing Xerix's strength, flight abilities, and elemental powers, like fire and wind blasts. Careful with that wall, Jack said one afternoon as Xerix let out a stream of fire that nearly melted a support beam. I am careful, Xerix replied, with smoke curling from his nostrils. I am precise. It is the walls of this world that are weak. Jack laughed, a real, long laugh, the first in months. Despite the destruction, he felt alive. The bond between them grew, subtle but undeniable. Xerix began to trust Jack's judgment, and Jack learned to read Xerix's moods and intentions in ways no one else could. One night, as Jack sat on a crate eating cold ramen, Xerix approached him. You are improving, he said softly, an unusual note of sincerity in his voice. Perhaps. You are not entirely useless, Jack smiled. Thanks, that's a compliment, I think. It is, Xerix said, curling his tail beside Jack, careful not to crush him. And for what it is worth, I enjoy your company. Do not let it go to your head. Or do, It is amusing. Just as Jack felt a sense of peace, trouble arrived. While he was out scouting for supplies, Xerix detected an unfamiliar presence nearby. A group of alien bounty hunters had arrived on Earth, their suits glinting with advanced tech, scanning for the dragon. They were the first real threat Jack and Xerix had faced together. Humyn, Xerix hissed. They are here for me, and by extension, you. They want me dead, or worse, enslaved. Not that I care about death, they are dull, but I care about survival. And you. Jack's heart raced. What do we do? Xerix crouched, wings tensing. We improvise. That is your specialty. You survive in ways we aliens cannot. You make choices that are unpredictable. That is why you were chosen. That is why I stay. Follow my lead, and you may live. The bounty hunters advanced, weapons glowing. Jack ducked instinctively as Xerix released a burst of fire that lit the nearby alley. Metal screeched as their suits absorbed the flames, but the humans inside struggled to adapt. Jack realized that the dragon's powers were strongest when paired with human intuition. When Jack shouted a suggestion, Xerix followed, using a combination of fire, wind, and sheer brute strength to disarm the hunters. The fight was chaotic, violent, and strangely exhilarating. For the first time, Jack felt the clarity of purpose that had been missing since the war. When the battle ended, the hunters retreated, beaten but alive. Xerix turned to Jack, smoke curling from his nostrils. Impressive, Humyn, he said. You have instincts, courage, foolishness, but courage, nonetheless. I might enjoy this partnership after all. Jack wiped sweat from his forehead, adrenaline still pumping. You mean, we did it together? Xerix's eyes glinted. Yes, together. Though let us not get sentimental. I am not known for feelings. But you are acceptable. Annoying, but acceptable. As the city slept, Jack and Xerix returned to the warehouse. The battle had forged a bond deeper than teasing, and training it was mutual respect, built on survival and trust. Jack realized that this dragon, despised by the galaxy for being too honest and unpredictable, had found in him a companion capable of matching his wit and courage. For the first time since returning from war, Jack felt alive. He wasn't just a veteran struggling to exist. He was a partner to a being of immense power, a creature the galaxy feared and misunderstood. And in this partnership, he discovered a small spark of hope, a promise of adventure, and the first signs of a purpose that might one day be larger than himself. Xerix curled beside him, tail draped across the crates, eyes half closed. Tomorrow, Humyn, he murmured, we leave Earth. Dravos Prime awaits. And with it, challenges you cannot imagine. But fear not, I will survive. And perhaps you will too. Jack lay back, staring at the dragon's shimmering scales, feeling a mixture of excitement and fear. Yeah, he whispered. Maybe I will. And so, the unlikely duo prepared for the next stage of their journey. One was Humyn, underestimated and fragile by galactic standards. The other, a dragon, despised for his honesty and strange morals. Together, they would face a universe that had never expected a human to survive, and perhaps, in time, they would teach it otherwise. The portal shimmered once more, brighter and more intense than before. Jack Marlowe clutched the edge of the warehouse doorway as the air rippled around him. Xerix stepped forward, scales gleaming in colors Jack couldn't name. Wings unfurled slightly to balance himself. The dragon's tail flicked against a crate with a soft thud, a sound that would have seemed calm if it weren't for the raw power contained in that tail alone. Ready, Humyn? Xerix asked, voice calm but tinged with amusement. This is where the fun begins. Jack swallowed hard. Fun? You call traveling to a planet in another galaxy and possibly dying fun? Perspective, Humyn. One must adapt, Xerix said, stepping into the portal. Some of us call it entertainment. Before Jack could reply, the portal swallowed them, and the familiar hum of Earth vanished. In an instant, they stood on a platform suspended in a void of stars. Below them stretched a city of impossible-shaped towers that twisted and shimmered like liquid metal. Bridges suspended in the air without support, and vehicles that moved faster than the eye could follow. This was Dravos Prime, capital of the Dravosian Empire. Jack blinked. This is insane. Welcome, Xerix said smoothly, to my home. Or, as you might say, our future nightmare. A figure approached, cloaked in deep violet robes. Eyes sharp and calculating. Queen Thalira herself. Jack felt an odd mixture of awe and fear. Even through the holograms, she had been commanding, but here, in the flesh, she radiated authority. Jack Marlowe, she said, her voice firm. You have arrived, and Xerix, my unusual dragon, has vouched for you. You will undergo trials. Fail, and you will return to your world as a cautionary tale. Succeed, and you will inherit what was promised. Jack's stomach nodded. Trials? Yes, Thalira said. You will face challenges designed to test your courage, intelligence, and adaptability. Aliens have tried and failed before. You may succeed, or fail spectacularly. Do not underestimate the difficulty. Jack glanced at Xerix, who simply smirked. Spectacular failure is fun, Xerix murmured. But I suspect human ingenuity may surprise them. Their first trial was a combat arena, suspended high above the Dravosian city. The floor shifted beneath them, a puzzle of platforms that moved, tilted, and sometimes vanished entirely. Jack's first thought was, I'm going to die here. The opponents, fully armored Dravosian warriors, were taller, stronger, and faster than anything he had faced on Earth. Humyn, Xerix said, crouching beside him. Follow my instructions. Adapt, think. Do not panic. Jack nodded, fist clenched, adrenaline surging. The first wave of warriors charged. Jack ducked instinctively, rolling off a platform just as a spear missed his head. Xerix released a blast of fire, forcing the nearest warriors back, leaving Jack room to maneuver. Move left, Xerix barked. Use the unstable platform. Jack leapt, landing on a swaying metal beam, arms outstretched to balance. The warriors followed, but their movements were slower, more precise, and therefore predictable. Jack realized something vital. Humans could improvise. Where aliens relied on patterns and logic, humans could be chaotic, unexpected. He kicked one warrior off the platform, grabbed a discarded energy baton, and blocked another's strike. Xerix followed every move, wings coiling and flaring with precision. His flames careful not to harm Jack but devastating to the opponents. When the arena finally fell silent, Jack and Xerix stood victorious. The crowd of alien spectators murmured in shock. No human had ever survived the first wave. Impressive, Thalira said, her voice calm but carrying surprise. But survival is only the beginning. Jack wiped sweat from his brow, chest heaving. This isn't over? No, Xerix said, curling his tail around Jack. This is where it gets interesting. The second trial was a series of logic puzzles designed to test intellect and strategy. Jack was led to a chamber filled with shifting walls, glowing symbols, and floating platforms. The instructions were written in a Dravosian language, alien in every sense. Jack's first instinct was panic. He had never been good with puzzles, especially ones he couldn't read. But Xerix nudged him gently. Do not overthink. Humans solve problems differently. Trust your instincts. He began experimenting, pressing symbols, moving platforms, and noticing patterns in the light. Time and again, he made mistakes, but he learned from each one. Slowly, he realized the puzzles responded not just to logic, but to creativity. Aliens relied on rigid reasoning. Jack used intuition, combining trial and error with gut feelings. Platforms shifted, doors opened, symbols aligned. He completed the final puzzle just as the room began to close in. Xerix exhaled a plume of smoke that smelled faintly of iron and sulfur. See, you humans are unpredictable, and that makes you dangerous. In a good way, Jack laughed, nervous but triumphant. Dangerous, right? I'm supposed to be dangerous? Yes, Xerix said simply. To aliens who cannot imagine your kind thinking outside the rules. You are remarkable. The third trial tested moral judgment. Jack was presented with a holographic scenario. 2 villages under threat. One could be saved at the expense of the other. Each choice would have consequences, and alien observers watched his every decision. Jack hesitated. On Earth, He had faced decisions in war that haunted him. He knew the weight of a choice. He looked at Xerix, who tilted his head. Humans value something beyond victory, beyond survival. That is why we bond. Jack made his choice, opting to save the village where lives were in danger but resources were scarce, reasoning that future survival depended on compassion. The aliens gasped. No one had ever made a morally human choice. The trial ended, and instead of punishment, Jack was commended. Valera's expression was unreadable. Unexpected, she said. Your humanity, maybe your strength, or your undoing. The final trial was both physical and mental, a gauntlet through alien terrain, filled with traps, illusions, and ambushes. Jack and Xerix navigated together, each learning the other's rhythm. Jack realized that his quick thinking, improvisation, and willingness to take risks complemented Xerix's raw power. And intelligence perfectly dot at one point, a bridge began to collapse. Jack grabbed a floating energy cable, swinging across just as Xerix blasted the supports with precise fire, creating a temporary platform. Together, they cleared the gauntlet, hearts pounding dot when they emerged. The alien judges were silent for a moment, then erupted in astonished murmurs. No human or dragon bonded with a human had ever passed all trials. Valera approached them, her expression softening slightly. You have passed where no other human or dragon has. Remarkable. Jack exhaled, relief washing over him. So, we did it, for now, Xerix said, curling his massive body around Jack protectively. But the universe does not stop challenging. That is why it is entertaining. Jack laughed, the sound raw and freeing. For the first time, he felt like more than a veteran struggling to survive. He was part of something vast, something dangerous, and yet full of possibility. As night fell over Dravos Prime, Jack and Xerix gazed at the alien city below. Towers shimmered, lights danced, and the stars seemed closer than ever. Jack realized that the trials had changed him. He was no longer the man who had returned to Earth, haunted by the past. He was someone who could survive and even thrive in a universe that had never expected humans to endure. Xerix nudged him gently. Rest, human. Tomorrow, we face something far more complicated. Politics, intrigue, aliens who will try to manipulate us. But remember this, humans are unpredictable. And that is why we survive. Jack nodded, finally allowing himself to relax. He felt a sense of purpose, of belonging, and even excitement. He was no longer alone. He had Xerix, a partner unlike any other, and together, they were ready to face whatever the galaxy could throw at them. And somewhere deep inside, Jack knew that the trials were only the beginning. The real challenges, those that would test not just strength and intelligence, but character, were yet to come. But for now, he allowed himself a rare smile, looking at his dragon companion. All right, he said quietly. Let's see what the universe has in store for us. Xerix rumbled in agreement, a sound like distant thunder. Oh, it is about to get very interesting, human. Very interesting indeed. The halls of the Dravosian palace were grand beyond imagination. Towers of shimmering metal stretched high into the sky, spiraling in impossible shapes. The floors were polished to perfection, reflecting the colored lights that danced from the walls. Jack Marlowe walked beside Xerix, his heart still pounding from the recent trials. He had survived the combat arenas, the logic puzzles, and even moral tests. Yet the palace corridors felt more dangerous than any battlefield he had ever known. Human. Xerix murmured, tail brushing against a marble pillar. These halls are treacherous. Not physically, though the guards are formidable. No, this danger is subtler. Intrigue, politics, lies, alien customs we must navigate carefully. Jack frowned. Politics? I barely understand taxes on Earth, and now I'm supposed to survive. Alien politics? Precisely, Xerix said, eyes narrowing. And do not think you can rely on brute force alone. Some enemies hide behind smiles. They were escorted to a grand chamber where Queen Thalira awaited. Her expression was serene, but her eyes betrayed sharp calculation. Jack noticed several advisors around her, their postures stiff, expressions cold. Xerix stiffened beside him, sensing tension. Jack Marlowe, Thalira said formally. You have proven capable in the trials. Few humans could survive what you did. Few dragons could follow one. But proving yourself in combat and puzzles is only the beginning. The true challenge lies in navigating the court and surviving the intentions of those who wish to see Xerix destroyed. Jack swallowed hard. Destroyed? Yes, Thalira said. Many here despise him, not because he is evil, but because he is honest, unpredictable, too much like a human in thought, morality, and intuition. Such qualities are dangerous to the stability of the Empire. Jack's stomach tightened. He had expected enemies, but this was different. This was subtle, hidden, and everywhere. So, what am I supposed to do? You observe, you learn, and you protect him, Thalira said. You understand your human strengths, instinct, creativity, emotional reasoning, and you use them. You may succeed where aliens fail. Over the next few days, Jack walked a dangerous line. The court was a maze of whispers and veiled threats. Advisors approached him with polite smiles and subtle tests. One attempted to trip him into making a political mistake, assuming that a human could not understand alien protocols. Jack noticed the traps, relied on gut feelings, and responded in ways that bewildered his would-be manipulators. Xerix, meanwhile, was a target of open hostility. Some nobles refused to acknowledge him in council, while others whispered venomously about the dragon's supposed threat. Jack began to realize the depth of the conspiracy. Certain factions were planning to seize power. By eliminating Xerix or worse, enslaving him, one evening, Jack overheard a meeting in a side corridor. He pressed himself against the wall, barely breathing, as alien voices discussed their plan. The human heir is weak, one said. He may survive the trials, but he cannot comprehend the subtleties of governance. Xerix will be isolated. Then we remove him. Jack's heart pounded. He had underestimated the stakes. These were not mere challenges. They were plots of assassination and betrayal. When he returned to Xerix, he shared what he had heard. The dragon's eyes glimmered in the dim light, scales shimmering with a low, threatening glow. Interesting, Xerix said. They believe humans are weak, that they can manipulate you. Yet, humans are unpredictable, emotional, irrational, creative. That is why you survived the trials. That is why I survive. And now, we must use it. Jack nodded, determination settling in. He may be inexperienced in alien politics, but he understood human cunning, adaptability, and moral reasoning. He would need all of it. The next day, during a formal audience with Thalira, Jack observed subtle gestures, brief glances, and coded phrases that revealed allegiance and intent. One of the senior advisors, a tall alien named Korath, was especially aggressive in his questioning, attempting to undermine Jack's authority. You are unprepared for leadership, Humyn, Korath said. Voice smooth. You have survived trials through luck and circumstance, not skill. Tell me, how will you govern with a dragon who defies command? Jack met his gaze steadily. By understanding him, he said calmly. By listening. By learning. Something your advisors, skilled though they are, seem to forget. Leadership is more than rules. It is insight. It is adaptability. Something humans excel at. Korath's jaw tightened. The other nobles exchanged whispers, shocked at the audacity of a human speaking with such confidence. Xerix rumbled beside Jack, an almost imperceptible vibration that spoke of approval. That night, Jack and Xerix worked together to gather information. The palace was full of secrets, hidden passages, surveillance systems, and coded communications. Using his human intuition, Jack deciphered a series of messages that revealed a plan to trap Xerix during a ceremonial event, leaving him vulnerable to attack. We strike preemptively, Xerix said, tail flicking in thought. We protect ourselves and make our own terms. You will need courage, Humyn, and decisiveness. Are you ready? Jack felt a surge of adrenaline. I've survived worse. I can do this. The night of the ceremony arrived. The grand hall was filled with dignitaries, aliens from countless worlds, and the tension was palpable. Jack stayed close to Xerix, observing every movement, noting every glance. He knew the conspirators would act at the first opportunity. As the ceremony reached its peak, Korath made his move. Hidden weapons activated. Aiming at Xerix, Jack shouted a warning. Xerix reacted instantly, shifting his massive body, wings unfurling, and unleashing a controlled blast of fire that destroyed the weapons before they could harm him. Or Jack, panic erupted among the conspirators. Jack saw his chance. Using quick thinking and human intuition, he maneuvered through the chaos, activating emergency shields and locking down escape routes. Xerix followed every signal, his immense power turning what could have been disaster into a display of dominance. By the end, the conspirators were captured or forced to retreat, their plot foiled by an unlikely alliance between human adaptability and dragon strength. The court stood in stunned silence. Even Queen Thalira, who rarely displayed emotion, nodded slightly, acknowledging their achievement. "You have done well," she said. "Few would have survived not just the trials, but the treachery. You and Xerix are remarkable." Jack exhaled, relief washing over him. He had faced something far more dangerous than combat or puzzles: deception, manipulation, and betrayal. And yet, he had survived not through brute force alone, but through courage, insight, and human ingenuity. Xerix curled beside him, scales shimmering softly. "You are useful," he said quietly. "Not just in combat, human. Your thinking, your unpredictability. It is invaluable." "I am pleased." Jack smiled, tired but proud. "We did it together, I think. We make a good team, indeed," Xerix rumbled. "Though do not expect praise often. That is a human trait I find fascinating and annoying." As the night settled over the palace, Jack realized that the real battles were only beginning. The galaxy was vast, full of threats, conspiracies, and challenges beyond imagination. But for the first time, he felt confident. He had Xerix, a dragon unlike any other, and together they could face whatever came next. And somewhere deep within him, Jack Marlowe knew that the universe had underestimated humans for far too long. Their creativity, courage, and moral intuition made them unpredictable, and sometimes that unpredictability was the most powerful weapon of all. Xerix's voice broke the silence. "Tomorrow, we begin the next phase: alliances, diplomacy, intrigue, and you, human, will need to think faster than ever. Are you ready?" Jack nodded, determination hardening in his chest. "I'm ready. Let's do this together." Human and dragon, they prepared to navigate a web of conspiracy, politics, and power struggles that would test them in ways no trial ever could. And in that moment, Jack felt alive, not just surviving, but thriving in a universe that had never expected a human to succeed. The real adventure was only beginning. The throne room of Dravos was unlike anything Jack Marlowe had ever seen. Towers of crystal and metal spiraled high above, reflecting the alien city lights outside. The floor was polished so perfectly it mirrored the ornate ceiling, decorated with symbols that seemed to shift as one moved. Around the room, dignitaries from countless planets filled the galleries, their eyes fixed on the human and dragon who had defied expectations. Jack adjusted his jacket nervously. Xerix, his massive dragon companion, crouched beside him, tail coiled carefully so as not to crush any nearby furniture. His scales shimmered in the soft light, colors rippling like liquid fire. For a moment, Jack felt small, insignificant, and out of place. Then he reminded himself of everything they had survived together: the trials, the conspiracy, the battles. They had come this far. Queen Thalira rose from her throne, her robes flowing with elegance and authority. "Citizens of Dravos," she began, voice echoing throughout the chamber. "Today we witness an unprecedented event. Jack Marlowe of Earth and Xerix, the last Dravosian dragon, have demonstrated qualities that no other human or dragon has ever shown: courage, intelligence, integrity, and loyalty. Qualities that transcend worlds and species." Murmurs of astonishment spread through the audience. Many had doubted the human, ridiculed him as fragile, unworthy, and incapable of understanding alien customs. And yet, here he stood, alive, composed, and ready to face whatever came next. Jack's gaze met Xerix's, and the dragon gave a subtle nod, eyes reflecting pride and trust. Jack swallowed. "We did it," he whispered. "Yes," Xerxes rumbled softly, a sound like distant thunder. "For now. But the true test remains, leadership. Allies will be sought, enemies will maneuver, and decisions will carry consequences far beyond anything you've faced." Jack took a deep breath, letting the weight of the moment settle. He had been a soldier, trained to follow orders, survive, and adapt. Now, he needed those same skills in a completely new way through diplomacy, courage, and the unique human intuition that had carried him this far. The ceremony continued. Thalira spoke of Xerxes' inheritance, explaining that the dragon's past reputation as despised was not due to malice, but because his honesty and unpredictability threatened the old order. And yet, she said, it is precisely these qualities that make him and his human companion worthy of a new path forward. They have proven that integrity, courage, and creativity are strengths, not weaknesses. Jack's ears twitched at the words. He had never imagined being praised like this, not for his actions in war, not for surviving impossible trials, and certainly not for being human. And yet, here he was, standing in a foreign palace, recognized as a partner to a being of immense power and influence. The final challenge of the ceremony began unexpectedly. An explosion shook the room. An alien agent loyal to the conspirators Jack had defeated before appeared, aiming weapons directly at the throne. Chaos erupted. Guards rushed forward, shields activating, and energy blasts sparking against the walls. Xerxes reacted immediately, wings unfolding with terrifying grace, and he unleashed a controlled burst of fire that neutralized the nearest threats. Jack dodged falling debris and shouted instructions, relying on instinct and quick thinking to direct Xerxes and the palace guards. One of the attackers managed to bypass the outer defenses, aiming directly at Thalira. Jack didn't hesitate. Using a combination of agility and intuition, he lunged forward, knocking the alien aside just as Xerxes' tail swept another enemy off their feet. Together, human and dragon moved with seamless coordination, each anticipating the other's actions. The battle was intense, but brief. By the time the dust settled, the conspirators lay captured or retreating, their plot destroyed. The crowd erupted in awe, not just at Xerxes' power, but at the undeniable teamwork between human and dragon. Jack leaned against a pillar, chest heaving. We actually did it," he said, voice trembling from adrenaline. Xerxes lowered his massive head, bringing it level with Jack's eyes. "Yes, we did. And do not think this proves anything about luck. It proves something far more important. Humans are not predictable. You think differently, you act differently, and that unsettles those who rely on control. That is why we survived. That is why we are victorious." Jack smiled, finally letting himself feel pride. He had always been underestimated, seen as fragile or insignificant. But now, he realized that being human, unpredictable, adaptable, emotional, and creative was not a weakness. It was a power. Queen Thalira stepped forward, eyes sweeping over Jack and Xerxes. From this day forward, she proclaimed, Jack Marlowe and Xerxes shall lead together, not by force alone, but by wisdom, courage, and integrity. They are the embodiment of what our galaxy needs, unexpected, unpredictable, and unafraid to act when others hesitate. The crowd erupted in applause, cheers echoing through the grand hall. Jack felt a strange warmth in his chest, a combination of relief, pride, and awe. He had survived trials no human had survived, faced betrayal and assassination, and emerged stronger. He had learned that his flaws, his stubbornness, his impulsiveness, his human unpredictability were in fact his greatest strengths. Xerxes nudged him gently with his massive snout. Do not get comfortable. This is only the beginning. There will be challenges, choices, battles, political, social, and perhaps even physical, that will test us further. But for now, enjoy this victory. Jack laughed, a sound of pure relief and joy. I think I might just enjoy it, he said. In the following weeks, Jack and Xerxes worked together to stabilize the empire. They navigated alliances, negotiated treaties, and inspired loyalty among the citizens. Aliens who had once scoffed at a human's presence began to respect Jack's insight, courage, and decision-making. Xerxes' reputation shifted from feared and despised to revered, a dragon whose loyalty, strength, and intelligence were unmatched. Jack found himself using his human intuition in unexpected ways. He could read situations, anticipate deception, and make decisions quickly, often saving lives and preventing disasters. Xerxes followed his lead, adapting to human thinking while adding his immense power and perspective. Together, they became a symbol of hope and change. One evening, Jack stood on a balcony overlooking the alien city, Xerxes beside him. The lights of Dravos Prime shimmered like stars in a liquid sky, towers glowing with iridescent hues. Jack realized how far he had come from a struggling, weary veteran on Earth to a respected leader in an interstellar empire. "You've changed, Humyn," Xerxes said quietly. "You've grown stronger, smarter, braver, and yet you remain human, unpredictable, emotional, bold. That is why you succeed." Jack smiled, looking at the dragon who had become his companion, protector, and friend. "And you've changed too, Xerxes. You've learned to trust, to work with someone else. Not just your instincts, but mine too." Xerxes gave a low rumble of amusement. Perhaps, though do not expect me to admit this too often. It is irritatingly satisfying." Jack laughed softly. For the first time in years, he felt truly alive. He had survived impossible challenges, forged an unbreakable bond, and proven that humans, though underestimated, fragile by alien standards, and unpredictable, could thrive in the universe. In the coming months, stories of Jack and Xerxes spread across the galaxy. Humans were no longer seen as weak, insignificant, or disposable. They were clever, courageous, and capable of extraordinary deeds. And one small human from Earth, paired with a dragon that had been despised for centuries, had become a symbol of hope, innovation, and the power of unexpected strength. Jack stood tall beside Xerxes, gazing at the city below. "Do you think they'll ever stop underestimating humans?" he asked quietly. Xerxes' eyes gleamed with amusement. "Not likely, and that is their mistake. Unpredictability is our greatest weapon. Your kind is remarkable, and I, for one, will ensure that no one forgets it." Jack nodded, a quiet smile forming on his lips. "Then let's make sure the galaxy remembers, together." The dragon rumbled, a sound like distant thunder rolling across mountains. Jack felt it deep in his chest. Together, they had survived trials, conspiracies, and battles. Together, they would face whatever the universe had to offer and show that humans, underestimated and overlooked, could achieve the impossible. As the twin moons of Dravos Prime rose in the sky, casting a silvery glow over the city, Jack Marlowe and Xerxes stood side by side. One human, one dragon, an unlikely pair who had defied the galaxy's expectations. And in that moment, the universe knew humans were not just survivors. They were innovators, heroes, and a force that even the most advanced civilizations could not predict. Jack smiled, feeling the weight of legacy settle on his shoulders. "We did it, Xerxes. We really did it." "Yes," the dragon rumbled softly. "And this is only the beginning."